Hello and welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And on this episode, we're going to be discussing minute 17 of Jurassic Park 3. David, ready to finish out the week?
Sure.
Alright. As we enter minute 16 of Jurassic Park 3, Alan told Billy that he had no intention of being alone with these people, and that's why he invited Billy along. Alan had then reclined his chair, put on his hat, and tried to get some sleep. As we open on minute 17, Billy turns to address Cooper, sitting at the very back of the plane, and asks him, "So how do you know the Kirbys?" Cooper replies, after a pause, "Through our church." At the 12-second mark, we cut outside the plane, as it slowly disappears into the clouds, and some whimsical music begins to play. We cut inside, as Alan still sleeps, and the sound of the plane's engines spluttering in the background, as he suddenly wakes up. He looks forward and notices the cockpit's empty, and we can start to hear a raptor purr. At the 29-second mark, he turns to where Billy was seated, and sees a raptor looking directly at him. Alan reels back in fright, as the raptor calls his name. Alan. At the 32-second mark, Alan's woken by Billy, and he replies, "Alan," once again. And Grant wakes, surprised, and breathing heavily. He looks across to see Billy still seated beside him, and Billy says, "Wake up, we're almost there." At the 42-second mark, we cut back outside the aeroplane, as it banks to the right, then to the left, and Isla Sorna can be seen through the clouds. At the 50-second mark, we cut back into the cockpit, as Udesky and Nash hear a call coming over the radio, telling the plane that they are in restricted airspace, and must change direction immediately. And as the minute ends, Udesky shakes his head to Nash and reaches forward and turns off the radio, as the two men begin their preparations and descend to the island. As we open on minute 17, we get a quick shot of Nash up the front with Udesky piloting the plane, and we can see down the plane's length Cooper's seated at the rear of the plane by himself, and Billy looks around in his chair to address him and says, "So how long do you know the Kirbys?" Which we discussed very early on, where the Kirbys, where Paul specifically come on scene, and it appeared Billy knew them a lot more than what he was leading to believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did, and this really kind of felt like it added to that feeling, in just the fact that he kind of turns around to Cooper here and he says, "Well, how do you know these guys? I've known them for years, you know?" He doesn't say as much, but it kind of feels implied, you know?
Also saying the Kirbys over Mr. and Mrs. Kirby. Like, if they're rich and wealthy, you'd think Mr. and Mrs. Kirby would be more how you'd address them, but the Kirbys is if it was a family.
Yeah.
We don't know at this stage about Eric, apart from what we've seen in the opening, so at this point we only know him as Mr. and Mrs. Kirby. But then it might be just an issue they had with the script when they're throwing it all together.
Yeah.
But Cooper sits there, pauses for a moment, then replies, "Through our church." And he's sitting there with his black glasses on, slick black hair, sort of looking a lot Malcolm-ish. Seems to be dressed up a bit too much to be going to an island, but
yeah,
he gets changed later. We cut outside the plane as it flies into a large cloud and disappears from view, and some ominous, whimsical music begins to play. And for a start, it almost looks like or going back to the start of the film, where we're going to go into this mist or into this fog or cloud, and something's going to happen, something bad. And something bad does happen, because we open inside the plane and Grant wakes from a sleep and notices that no one's flying the plane. And in the background you can sort of hear the engines cough and splutter as if they're cutting out. He turns to where Billy was seated, hearing a very familiar sound as a raptor purrs next to him, and turns and sees the raptor looking directly at him. Both its clawed hands on the seat back in front of it, and looking really weird, just sitting there. And it calls his name, Alan.
Yeah, this is one of the mistakes of the movie, if only because and it's even acknowledged clearly as a mistake in the commentary where Stan Weston says that he realized too late that they had Alan looking at a Jurassic Park 3 raptor when he wouldn't have been able to recognize these.
Hmm.
He only knew the ones from the first two, and so they had ILM kind of gray it out a bit in the after in the post production, but it really doesn't work. It just looks like a kind of a gray looking Jurassic Park 3 male raptor.
Hmm.
I think they really could have tried more to have done something with it to make it look like they didn't just kind of use the Jurassic Park 3 raptor, obviously, you know?
Yeah, I think the quills on the head are definitely the big one that stand out. Um,
Oh yeah,
with
and
being the
the
new Raptor
large
design.
ridges of snout too.
Yeah, yep, yep. And you can clearly see there, like you can see it's a lot darker, but you've still got sort of where the colour lines would be, and all that sort of detail that's in these new Raptors, but was never in the original Jurassic Park ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's apart from the Tyrannosaur and Spinosaur fight that we will get to, this is probably one of the other big issues that people have with this film, and the scene itself I don't mind, especially with Grant's PSD and all that that's been hinted at, and all his theories about birds being able to vocalise, birds being the evolution of dinosaurs. We even had at the start of the film where he's trying to talk to the parrot Jack.
And he's trying to get to say his name, and then here the dinosaur, the raptor, says his name.
Yeah, yep.
So there's meant to be a link there. It's one of, I mean, it's one of the better thought out, but less well executed parts of the movie.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. The biggest issue I have here is the fact that it's a new design raptor.
Yeah.
But Grant pulls back in fear, and we suddenly cut to him sleeping as he wakes up, and Billy's hands on him, and he says one more time, "Alan," and he wakes up, and Billy says, "Wake up, we're almost there." Alan sort of looks around and catches his breath, and you can see it definitely rattled him, and smiles as he realises it was a dream, and looks out his window as the plane sort of banks right and left and starts to drop down on the approach to Sauna. We can see the green, lush island through the clouds. And inside the cockpit, a voice comes over the radio. Nash and Udesky sort of lean in and listen to it through their headsets. Unidentified aircraft approaching Isla Sauna. This is San Juan approach. You are flying in restricted airspace. Immediately turn to the coordinates 200. I repeat, direct to. And then Udesky sort of shakes his head and turns the radio off, cutting off the transmission. And that's where the minute ends. But it's sort of interesting there that there's some sort of tower or airport that's monitoring aircraft in the area.
What I think it might have been, because we saw a plane that was being viewed through the binoculars at the beginning of the movie. I think that it may have been the plane that spotted him, but were too far away to intercept, and so they radioed the mainland to have them intercept instead.
Yep. Yeah, because I didn't Google, so I'm assuming San Juan's a city or town in Costa Rica on the coast there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it was anything else, you'd think, okay, maybe it's a control deck on an offshore ship or something, but it's definitely like a Spanish name.
Yeah.
Getting into the script and novel comparisons, in the script, Cooper answers Billy by saying he met the Kirby's through their church, and Billy asks what religion, and Cooper replies with the one that worships God and believes in being good, which is a bit more of a smart-ass answer than what he already gives.
Yeah.
In the dream sequence, it's in the script, but as the raptor says Alan, it moves to attack him, and that's when Grant wakes in fright. So it might have just been the fact that here they haven't got a lot of room to move to make this animatronic lunge.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. They have it kind of propped up in the seat here without any kind of I doubt they even have the tail or anything on there, you know. So it's really just what's that?
Oh, I'd love to see the behind the scenes of it in that plane, just how much of it. Because sure, I don't even think it'd be the torso. It'd be just the head looking at Grant on something, and then the hands, like they have the puppet hands that they can just sit on the seat in front. Because you know what tiny aircraft are like. Alan's not even comfortable in there. There's no way a Raptor's going to be able to get into a seat.
No.
Especially the full-size animatronic, anyway. As the plane drops lower to the island, everyone's looking out the windows and they can see the green island emerging through the clouds, which is sort of hinted at here, where we see the plane bank and start to drop down towards the ocean on its final approach. But in the novel, the Raptor dream's cut out completely. Grant falls asleep, and 3 hours later is woken by a jolt, and he looks out the window to see the island start to appear through the clouds. So they sort of
Probably for the best.